everybody, and welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Here we are, Alex Navarro, deep into the beginnings of February.
I was going to say, like, deep into what, man? It's the beginning of February.
Deep in the beginning of February. Happy birthday. I'm going to do my first round of happy birthday February birthdays because there's just always a ton of them. There are just always a ton.
How's that possible? It's the shortest month.
I know. They all squeeze in there. So happy birthday if it's your birthday. This round of February, you'll probably get about 3 more of these for the month. I've got at least like 4 family members that have their birthdays in February.
It's like a birthday clown car.
It really is. They just all pour out to get in there. Brad Shoemaker, February birthdays.
We're losing the thread on the deep thing. I was waiting for somebody to start singing Deep in the Heart of Texas.
But in the heart of February.
Yes, Deep in the Heart of Texas in the heart of February.
Yeah, we're in February. One of my favorite months. I don't know why, but February just there's something about it.
Oh, what?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I was going to say, you've seen the video, right?
What video?
Who is that guy and what city is he from? Alex, you live on the internet. You know what I'm talking about. That news reporter that did that report on February a few years ago.
It's like I forget if he's a meteorologist or something for like a local news network, and he gave this incredible, like, just kind of ad hoc rant about how it's the worst month.
Oh, it's so good. I think it's one of the best things that has ever been put on video.
February is one of those months that's just like, let's just get, like, again, sorry to all the people who have their birthdays in February. I'm also not a big fan of Valentine's Day. Not a lot going on in February for me. It is one of those months of like, if we get through this, we get to March. And then it starts like warming up a bit. February is usually like, at least here now, winds up being like chilly, cold, and wet. And then
end of the winter.
Because I like winter, but
end of winter is always the worst part of winter, though.
I found it. Vinny, you really need to go watch this.
Okay,
it's very poetic. Like, it's very poetically written. Something happened here, but it's over now. Like Kevin Killeen is the reporter's name. KMOX out of St. Louis.
Okay,
just go watch that video. After
KMOX.
I'll have to go take a look. Maybe share my my dislike for February.
It's very really funny.
Dislike really any month particularly, but February you get through February. You know,
you muddle through.
I don't know how well you can pipe audio into this podcast. I just put it in the chat.
Not super duper easily.
All right.
without
it's fine.
Rigging up some stuff here.
I'm sure lots of people have heard it already, but yes, you should look it up. It is absolutely a delight.
Yeah, I don't but we talked about it on the Planorama. It'll be going up at some point, probably around the time this is or today. I forget, when is it going up? Is it today at the recording?
Today
tomorrow?
At the time of the public posting of this podcast.
There are games in February. We'll have video games in it.
Stuff's happening,
and they will have video games that we will not be covering in it because there are like 1,500 releases in the big list of video games. It was like loaded. There was a long scroll on there, so there's plenty out there. So game wise, go for it. I just it's like muddy now. I don't know. I don't want to complain too much about it, but it's like I was in my backyard and I hit one of those like just big mud piles and like almost took a dive.
This is why I got rid of my front yard. Now it's all just rocks, no mud.
Yeah, you still got the backyard, right?
Yeah, but I don't have to walk out there.
Great, fantastic. Aside from February, anything else got going on in the early 2025? It's hard to talk about. It's hard for me to talk about 2025 because
nothing going on out there.
So
nothing
much
at all.
2025 to talk about.
Steady as she goes so far this year. What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean? Ship is doing fine. The good
it's
ship.
All 2020 jive. Oh yeah. I want to die right now.
I'm not sure that anybody is 2020 thriving right now.
No.
I got the cables to hook up my NAS to the 1.5-inch longer cable.
Some fiber?
To hook up my NAS to the fiber. It is now fiber ready. It is. I don't know. That's the exciting thing I did last night.
Okay.
Plug that in and then switch over my NAS. That's it, though. I'm trying to think of anything else that happened since the last time we talked on the Ramblecast. But really, I have to say, admittedly, it's a lot of opening up a web page that I probably shouldn't open, aka the news, and then being like, I'm sorry, I can't.
I can't be here right now. I need to be elsewhere.
I have instituted a new rule, which I already failed at for the first time last night, of no more internet after dinner.
That's a good rule.
Like I told myself, all right, you can watch a YouTube video, you can read a book, you can play a video game, or you can go to bed.
Does watching a YouTube video, doesn't that creep in with like,
even,
don't you catch a stray one in your feed?
Yep,
it is impossible to completely avoid.
It's like, God damn it, I just want to watch this history of OS2. I don't want to just like get the news out of here.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of ads. I don't know if Alex, you have watched. Our governor is up for re-election. Every single YouTube video I open has an ad for. I will not name them because they will not get free advertising on this podcast. But it has a vote for me, and it's the same ad every video. YouTube's video, like their ad serving, has gotten real buck wild in the last several months. Like, it seems like they have increased the volume of ads, and two, they are just jutting them into every possible space they can, and it has made the using that site on anything other than your browser that blocks ads fucking suck. So the thing I will say on our end of the YouTube stuff, and again, we do not put, if you see a mid-roll ad on our videos, it is because somebody has monetized that video. We only check the pre and post roll.
Yep.
They want to insert ads everywhere.
Yes, they do.
They will be like, we'll find a spot for how many ads you want to do, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Like, we'll find you a spot. We'll
make this unusable for everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, they will find a spot and they will shove them in. And I have had pretty sick ad breaks in some places. But they want you to subscribe to their premium. Is the premium ad free across everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Zero ads if you pay. I have thought about it, but it's $14 now, and I see it's going up to like 18.
Yeah, sounds right.
I know a lot of people who really enjoy it. People who use YouTube a lot. This is such a weird thing. Maybe it's not a weird thing given the circumstances now. I use YouTube signed out quite a bit. So I suspect in order to make full advantage of that, the number of times I'm like, oh, that seems like an interesting video, open in a different incognito window so it doesn't show that I watched this.
Right.
I've got
you don't want to feed the algorithm.
I've got watch history off. I've got a bunch of stuff. Because if you're like, I don't know, that reality show clip does look kind of funny, then forget it. You're done.
You're out.
You have to prune your history very aggressively.
Yes.
If you want to maintain the sanctity of your algorithm, you have to get in there and unwatch anything that doesn't actually count,
Yeah, or if you're just like, what did this asshole say? Like, I'd watch this video and be like, and then you're just going to get that forever.
Yeah.
This is how they get you.
I mean, if you do keep your history clean, though, like that thing is startlingly effective at finding things you want to watch. Like, it is laser fucking targeted.
So I at some point when I was like, okay, I haven't deleted my history, but I did turn it off on a lot of devices, so that I am now just getting stuff that seems to be within my interest because it just stopped tracking videos of everything else. I'm like, oh, I get pretty good stuff now. But like when you have your history completely off, like we do for our business accounts, it's Wild West, man. The stuff that pops up in there is the grossest, gnarliest stuff that you're just like, is this what an unfiltered feed looks like?
It sure does.
Is this what the world is watching?
Uh-huh.
Is it just watching roundups of TikTok videos? I guess not TikTok videos anymore, but like people commentating.
No,
over...
look, TikTok is not gone. It's back for now.
Are people back on it?
I think so. I don't think people ever actually had enough time to really leave it.
I thought there was a whole mass migration, and they're like, just getting
a bunch of people signed up for the other things.
Yeah,
but
people went to Red Note briefly.
But are they back? I really,
everybody came
I don't
back.
follow TikTok.
If you have a following there, you are not abandoning that willy-nilly.
It was only actually down for 12 hours or something like that. Like very short, less than a day, I think.
I mean, Marvel Snap was down for longer than TikTok actually was.
Weird. Okay.
Like for a brief moment, there were shots going around of Red Note users very sad that their new American friends were now leaving.
Okay. Yeah. I am not a TikTok user.
I mean, this is the experience of knowing American people, is that they're very interested in you for about 15 minutes, and then something distracts them, and then they forget you exist.
Yeah, that's for sure. I
Welcome to the party.
Yeah,
I don't love infinite video scroll. Like I think,
Me either.
I think in the vein of like feeds comprised of slop on the internet, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, text-based social media is bad enough when it's just a constant spigot. Something about the short form video, though, I think melt brains. And this is not some like anti-TikTok screed or anything. I think it's just that you like cognitive effect of the constant thing. Something about it.
I agree with you, and I also think it kind of a TikTok screed, because I think that like feeding that algorithm with that feed is insidious.
Yeah. Like, I mean, to be clear, there's like a ton of stuff on TikTok that I find entertaining on an individual basis. Like when videos get linked from TikTok, like there's
that's how I ingest
like there's a ton of very good stuff on there. Right? And I'm not just talking about TikTok. Like YouTube has shorts. Yeah. What is it? Is it Reels on Instagram? I think. Like everybody's got their version
Facebook
of it.
has their video feed, which is, I say, of all of them, Facebook is the one that is a total worthless wasteland. There is nothing there for you.
Like even Twitter tried to do it, where they made videos autoplay after you just watched one video that you wanted to watch. They would just start autoplaying them endlessly, and then I'd be like, "What the fuck just happened? I just watched 12 videos without meaning to. Like, what is going on here?" You know, it's just
Vine. Like
just man, Vine, dude.
They should bring back Vine. Not Elon Musk, but someone should.
I really wonder how the people who founded Vine feel these days.
Let merge Vine and TikTok. Just get TikTok to just take. Look, we're called Vine now. Like, oh, okay.
I don't
know. You know where it was Vine in the U.S.? Was that a Silicon Valley?
That was Twitter.
I think Twitter acquired it.
They did, but I think they bought an American company, if I remember correctly.
Okay,
but I don't think for much. Like, talk about ahead of their time, man.
Yeah,
I know, yeah. You just had to have. Well, that's what I think. When people talk about TikTok, really, it's that magic algorithm, right? Like, again, not a TikTok user, but the stories I hear of the TikTok are like that algorithm. They're onto something there. They get in there. They know what you're watching.
Sorry.
I have not seen a lot of TikTok since I stopped commuting, so I can't look over people's shoulders anymore to watch them scroll through TikTok. So it's a real bummer for me.
Twitter did pay $30 million for Vine, so they didn't get nothing.
Yeah, but what would they pay for something if Vine had hit, TikTok status? But different formats, different time, different algorithms.
Different era.
That 6 seconds was just not enough.
That's is that how long they were?
Yeah, Vines were limited to 6 seconds.
Okay. Limited to 6 seconds. It was before they had gotten in on the whole like getting licensed music that you can then use in your videos thing. Because like at that point the DMCA was basically if your song appears on the internet, you go to jail. Now they TikTok spent a bunch of money licensing a bunch of music, and that is apparently how a lot of people consume music now.
Is that how they do it? Or not how they consume? Is that they license it? I didn't realize that.
As far as I know, they are licensing that stuff probably from like in a blanket license from either labels or publishing groups or whatever.
Yeah, it's built into the app. I don't know if it's just like listening to it and analyzing it to match songs, or if the user actually has to like tell it. I assume it's automatic, but there's a full on like automated link underneath people's posts now that shows exactly the artist and song.
Yeah.
Okay, and it won't like pull down a thing because it has a because you've used the song.
As long as it is in, like within the licensing window, I guess. I mean, it's possible stuff could get pulled down and then those videos might be in a weird place. But I think I saw some headline that like a bunch of Spotify podcasts were getting music yanked from it because some stuff got, unlicensed or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that shit is all a nightmare.
TikTok, they paid their $15 a month, or was it? How much was it to the Columbia House for their CDs every month?
I think that's how they start you, was like the $10 a month, $15 a month, but that's how they fucking get you.
Oh, it was 10 CDs for a penny.
Oh yeah,
that was the starting point.
Which I got in on and then never had to buy the required CDs after that.
Did you get to pick your 10 CDs, or was it from like a curated list?
I mean, it was from what they had, but yeah, you did get to pick.
Yeah,
man, amazing! What an amazing deal. Look, if you haven't noticed already,
we're in hell.
We are in actual hell. Actually, hell has moved out.
Yeah.
we are
Even
where
hell is
used
like,
to be.
This is too fucking much for us, man.
we're hell moved to Europe somewhere. We are where hell used to be. But if you haven't noticed, we don't have too much to go on the gaming front. We're still kind of chewing through some back catalog here. Releases are coming out in February, but we got a couple of things to talk about here. So we'll
couple of things that just dropped.
One of those things is While Waiting. While Waiting, a small game that you may remember from
Summer Game Fest.
Was it Summer Game Fest?
Summer Game Fest.
That sounds right.
I played it. It was part of Day of the Devs down there.
Okay. While Waiting, Brad, why don't you set up the gameplay of While Waiting?
I was actually relieved you played it to help me out with that, because it's a hard game to talk about. It's a puzzle. Yeah, it's a puzzle game. It's about waiting. It is like it's kind of like 2D animated. Although I think it might actually be 3D, because some of the puzzle levels actually have some like subtle 3D elements to them, but it looks like hand drawn 2D animation. And you're always this little character thrust into some weird situation or mundane situation. And you've got
I would say the best way to describe the graphic style to me is probably somewhere around like a what was that drawing one with the words where you put the words in the scribble knots? It's almost like scribble knots-esque. Like it's a cleaner, it's outliney more, but
it's got kind of a storybook look to it, or like a children's book kind of look. Yeah. But every level is like, I don't know how long it lasts. Every level has a hidden timer on it.
Yeah.
And within that timer, you've got a little checklist of puzzles to solve.
Yep.
But they don't tell you at all what the puzzles are. Like each puzzle is just a little icon and a vague phrase along with it.
You can kind of, it's like the Goose Game style one. It's
sure.
Like
yes.
A little like that.
Yes.
Like,
okay. Sure.
Like Picnic Ruiner. And you're like, okay.
Yes. Or like one of them, I think one of them is like, woof, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
And that one, you're at a bus stop and there happens to be a dog there. I did not figure out how to get that one though.
I guess they're little vignettes. Like you said, there's a hidden timer. You go from little vignette to vignette. It seems like you may be on an arc through this person's life. At least you start from being born and then you're an adolescent. And
I was hoping it would be a little more explicitly that, but like it sort of starts jumping around a little more. But yeah, at the beginning, you're like a soul in heaven, like waiting in line to be born.
Yeah. I think your objective is be born.
The first couple levels are super easy. Like the first one, that one's the first one, and the second one is just like breakfast.
Yes.
Breakfast table. And
but even after the first one, I stopped getting all the.
Okay. I think I got all the challenges on the first two, but from there I started missing them left and right. And it's definitely made for replaying.
Yeah.
You can just go back and pick them off a menu again. In fact, I think you can just hit restart on a given one while you're in it and just keep the ones you've already finished.
Oh, interesting. Because it moves you on automatically to the next one once the timer clicks. Because you usually get the last thing on the checklist is the
do nothing. I believe
do nothing,
the last challenge on every list is just do nothing,
which really means you just waited long enough.
Yeah,
I can do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it really to be clear, because I wasn't sure of this. To anyone wondering, it is not actually put the stick down and do nothing or the mouse. It is. You can do whatever you need to do, but it is complete the vignette.
Yeah, I think it's pretty inventive. It starts going some weird places that I didn't expect, like and starts getting like abstract in some ways. One of them is entirely within a phone. Like you're just
I didn't
in
get to that one.
Oh, you have the free to play mobile one? It's pretty early on.
That one fucking sucks. It made me so mad.
That one's really hard. I also got kind of mad at that one. I only got one or two on that one.
It's like a little too real.
It's
because you can open up an ad to get more tokens or more currency or whatever. I think it's wait while your AP restore, your action points restore, right?
Yes, and like that one is all about charging your credit card to buy currency and spending gems on treasure chests and like.
And you're watching an ad for another game that it's just like, and it buffers like while you're watching it, and you're like, oh my gosh, the timer's gonna run out. That one. That one's
not my favorite. That one's a little bit inscrutable, but I'm trying to think. I think it was when I got to there's one in like a fantasy setting. Like that one doesn't even feel like part of somebody's life unless they're dreaming it or whatever. Because all of a sudden now you're in a suit of armor fighting like this witch. That one is sorry. That one's like a full on action challenge, like a hard one. Like it gets crazy at the end. Like because she's like shooting a beam at you and like calling down columns of fire from the sky.
And you have to dodge it. You
have to dodge and duck and jump and weave to dodge everything. And it gets really fucking hectic by the end.
I mean, I got smoked at the end.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. But I think that's a dream because I think the one before that is them watching the TV show of that action hero.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I think.
Yes. And then right after that, I think is the one where you're lying in bed.
But they would be reversed.
Or maybe it was the other order. Anyway,
I think you're right though, but yeah.
Right around there is another one where you're lying in bed, and that one is first person because most of them you see your character, you can move them around on the screen, but then the one lying in bed is first person. And when you look around the room, it kind of like warps the perspective in a nice subtle way. Like it looks really cool.
And that one, actually, that was one of my favorites.
That one, yes.
I liked how you have to complete that one. It took me a minute.
That one has a bunch of cerebral stuff on it. Like there's one of them is like, what is the icon is of the light switch and the text is something about not being allowed to sleep with the lights on or something.
The one where the dad puts the light back on?
Yeah, so you flip it once, it's just a light switch, and you flip it once, and dad comes in, turns the lights off, and leaves.
Yeah.
When you go back to flip it again, now it starts moving around on the wall.
Yeah.
And
then it escalates from there.
Yeah, and once you finally get that one, you come back to it a third time, and now there are 8 light switches.
Yeah.
And it turns into like a match game.
But it's like memory, and they also move around.
And they move around every time you fail it.
Yeah.
Like the puzzle,
I don't know how I got it. I had to guess, and I guessed right, and I got it by the end.
Like the puzzles start getting pretty interesting and varied in that thing in a way that I found pretty clever.
Yeah. So like, it's definitely fun and clever, and I actually really like it. And I get it. And I think my problem was it was one of those things where I wanted to 100% everything before moving on. And I just, but once I got past like 3 or 4, and I was like, I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm just going to keep going, and I'll come back and I'll do it again, because there were just some I was getting 0 on. I was just poking at everything, and it would just be like, time's up.
And there's a fair number of them that you have to know what's coming to really pull them off. You know, 'cause it's like, a car's going to drive by, and you've got to be in the right place when it does, kind of stuff.
Or somebody's going to walk by, or like you have to be holding this thing at the end, or whatever it is. So,
it seems it definitely rewards like multiple playthroughs.
Yeah, but it's fun. The thing we should mention also is it's extremely context sensitive for what you're doing. It is you have like an action button that just changes depending on where you're standing.
Yeah, it's jump in some cases or pick up dog in another one. You know.
Yeah, my quibble with it would be that I was playing at the computer. I got it on Steam, and the mouse control. I wish the mouse let you click on stuff. It does not. You have to be. You have to. It kind of feels like it's made for a controller.
It's weirdly, despite only being on PC and Switch, they only show controller controls at the beginning. They don't actually even show keyboard controls.
No, which actually took me a second to be like, how do you bring the task list back up? Or like, they have a fidget button.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you hit tab on each level, you've got some kind of little time waster to play with.
Yeah, and it changes each level. Very cool though. It's $20. Hard to know at this point for me. Like, I don't know, I'm on level, I'm past 10, so I don't know, maybe 11 or 12. Do you know how far it goes?
No, I'm not sure. Yeah,
100.
I'm $20, like, it feels like maybe on the upper end for something like this. So I hope
depends where it goes, Yeah,
I hope it's a decent number of levels.
Yeah, it's. I'm enjoying it though. I think I'll show it to the kids. They always love these little checklisty slice of life games. Where you're just like doing something like this, especially if it gets really weird and kind of obtuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty charming, I think. Also from a Chinese developer, which.
Oh yeah,
I feel like is still uncommon enough that it's worth pointing out.
Yeah, especially if it's not a sick FMV game,
Yes, there are a lot of China is really killing it on the FMV games. Looking at Steam lately,
yeah,
I mean, look, they're
not bad.
The global capital of FMV development.
Somebody's got to do it. The China and Wales Interactive, the two FMV bastions. All right. Let's take a quick break. We really only have 1 or 2 more things to talk about in the gaming side of things, but we'll luxuriate in it. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we are back. And another thing that has been played, I believe Alex and Brad, I did not touch this, Rift of the Necrodancer.
The Necrodancer is back.
Not okay. Rift. I got 2 things going on here. Ready? Rift of the Necrodancer, which during the Planorama I found out was not actually a direct sequel to Crypt, which I think you expressed this first, Brad. Which
it does involve the same characters
and a lot of the same music and enemies,
but not the same gameplay.
No, definitely not.
And also not Riff of the Necrodancer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
I think it is still a play on words, though, because there are actual rifts in the game. But, rift, it all just kind of...
All right, that's it. All right. Tell me more.
It was definitely a different kind of game. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a roguelike, like a top-down roguelike, but a rhythm game. This is kind of just a rhythm game. But there's maybe a little more in common than you would think. Like a lot of the enemy types are the same and they behave in the same way. So there is actually a little bit of shared knowledge that I wasn't expecting. But this game's fucked up, man. It's
Oh,
I didn't get that far into it. I played through all 3 of the tutorials and then did a couple of levels, the last of which I tried on hard just because I needed to know.
Yeah.
They may have made the most difficult rhythm game I have ever seen. Potentially, to be clear. Like, on like a normal difficulty, it's playable, but like the second level in the game on hard, I bombed out after like 30 seconds. It's like a combat rhythm game. Sorry,
Okay.
don't let me just hog this whole segment, but it's like a combat rhythm game with a note highway where the notes are enemies. And they move around. Like, okay, the enemies can have a million different properties. Like, did you do all 3 of the tutorials, Alex?
I didn't do all the tutorials, but I did go a
Okay.
decent way into the campaign, so I did see some enemy variety type.
Like, my head was spinning by the end of the 3rd tutorial. There is so much. Like, there are enemies that when you hit them, they'll move back 1 or more spaces.
Yeah.
There are enemies that can move multiple spaces per beat towards you.
Yes.
There are enemies that require multiple hits per beat to like knock a shield off and knock them back.
Yep.
There are enemies that can change to different highways, like different node lanes.
Yes.
There are enemies that can port around the board. There are enemies that can be hidden, so you can't see what they're doing. There are enemies that you have to hit on the offbeat rather than the beat.
Yep.
And then there's a third type that I'm still not clear. Are you hitting between those 2 beats? They're the ones with the star-shaped shadows.
Okay, so I haven't
believe.
run into those
Okay,
yet.
so those are in the advanced tutorial. They show you the rest of the offbeat enemies where, you know, there's beat and offbeat. And I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the tutorial text again. I don't know what the third type is because what other kind of beat is there? There's only on and off, right?
Presumably. I mean,
Like,
it depends on where they're sliding it. Like, yes, there is an offbeat, but like sometimes the way they do it is they'll do combination, you know, stuff. Like there's, you know, it's 2 enemies on the same thing. Like an interesting thing to me is that the first thing they tell you is, hey, it looks like you're playing with a controller. This might actually be better on a keyboard for you.
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are only 3 note lanes, to be clear,
Yeah.
which doesn't look like a lot until you start seeing how complicated this game can get. And then it's like, I don't know how you could have more than 3.
And so
what is the action economy? Like what? Like I don't understand. Like you can hit once per beat or off beat. Is that how?
So
it works?
technically, you want to try and hit either on the beat or off the beat, depending on where the enemy is. But you're trying to line up your beat match to when the enemy lands in the sort of like end of the lane. You know, like where it's supposed to be, like a Guitar Hero track or something like that.
Just like Rock Band, like there's a line at the bottom, and when the enemies cross on that line is when you're supposed to hit them, and on the beat. And if they cross that, you have health and you lose health.
Yeah.
But you can't just spam. If you just spam the button,
No, you'll lose your combo.
Yeah,
and I think like you need a certain number of points, I think, to kind of advance.
I think it is. So you get a letter grade at the end of each level, and they give you gems, just like the gems that are the currency in Crypt.
Okay.
But these gems, I don't think there's a shopkeeper. I don't think there's like a concept of weapons. I think these are more for unlocking extras and stuff. But the score and the letter grade, I think, are just for doling out gems and stuff like that. You only, I think you only take damage if you miss an enemy, like if it gets past that last.
Yes.
Like if it gets past the bottom of the screen, basically. Like if you just miss on a beat, you're not going to take damage or anything. You're just going to break your combo and damage your score.
And you start out with 10 hearts. You get health items that also appear on the board in addition to the enemies, but you also have to hit those on the beat as well.
It's really neat, but it is super like there are like some of the enemies, like I said, that can juke lanes. Like they'll juke whatever way they are facing at the moment that you hit them. So you have to be keeping up with a lot of stuff coming at you.
Yeah.
Not all of which you're actually going to hit on the beat that it looks like you will, if that makes sense. It's a lot to explain. Like it's you really have to kind of play it to truly get how much can be going on at one time.
Yeah, and the thing I'll say for it, you know, and I got about like, I don't know, 10-ish missions into the campaign, which has a little story where Cadence and her friends, including the Necrodancer himself, are sucked into what looks like our world and are forced to deal with the fact that they now live in a version of our world. Like when you first meet the Necrodancer,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you first meet the Necrodancer, he is working at a fast food joint because he's like, I have to fucking do this to make ends meet here. I want out.
That's pretty good. I should have played story mode and not just gone deep on it.
But that's the thing is you can just play any of those levels separate in the just play, quick play menu or whatever. And then there's also a daily challenge, and there's also apparently user-made content in there if you want. Like people can make their own levels using custom music, which I believe will be distributable via the Steam Workshop.
That's cool.
I don't know if the Switch version would have that, but the Steam version does. But like, So the thing I got into with this, like as far as like trying to find its groove and trying to like get into the beat matching rhythm of it, is that as complicated as the enemy design seem like they start to get at a certain point, there is a musical feel to how they line up. Like for instance, if you get let's just say you get 2 slimes on a board, one of them is a 1-hit, one of them is a 3-hit. You hit them both, and then that slime will just back up a certain number of times. And that number of times usually corresponds rhythmically to where other enemies are kind of hitting. So what you're doing is you're basically hitting like the 2 far ones, the 2 middle ones, the 2 far ones again, that kind of thing. Like it balances out and flows in a way that does feel aligned with the music. It is not just crazy beat matching. Like it feels like there is a rhythm to the actual action.
Yeah, to be clear, by like playing it on normal difficulty, it's totally approachable. I specifically put it on hard because I was like, okay, I can see how this would get extremely hard to manage. I need to see what that's like, and it is overwhelming.
Yeah,
because your 3 fingers are just going back and forth constantly, and like it's you're having to think about what to do on a given beat, but also like things on the next beat and 3 beats after that, and gauging whether the enemy coming at you is the type that can actually skip 2 beats and jump straight to you, or is hitting this thing going to knock it back 1 or 2 spaces? Like you're having to kind of think almost non-linearly, like what's happening now, what's happening on the next beat, what's happening 2 beats after that. Like it's a lot.
It's challenging for sure.
What's happening on all beats at the same time? It's quantum beats.
Yeah.
All beats at the same time.
Within the context of the campaign, there's also other stuff. Like there are these mini games. I only ended up doing one of them, but it's a yoga mini game because one of your friends has had to become a yoga teacher in this world. And so that is the one that feels the most like a Rhythm Heaven type mini game, because it's like she does a move and then the 3 people who are taking the class all do it kind of in a rhythm as well, and you kind of have to line up with that rhythm. So it's like, upward dog, downward dog, warrior, whatever, and then you're watching the people on your line do it at a certain pace. I think there might be some other varieties of mini games, but that was like the first one I ran into. There are also apparently boss fights in that campaign, so
yeah, you can access all the like mini games and boss fights from the main menu too. So like it's good to hear there's extra stuff in there, because like the core gameplay seems pretty rad, but it's also like fairly straightforward. Like Crypt of the Necrodancer had a ton of stuff in it, and this feels like the core game here is a little more thin.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I did not even know that Note Lane was the core thing from the trailer we watched during the Planorama. I thought it was more like
they were just throwing a bunch of different variety at you.
Or WarioWare that you'd just be changing every time. So that Note Lane is the gameplay with stuff peppered
more
in.
The main gameplay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I really want to check back in like 6 months, because somebody is going to go completely bananas on this game and be able to just like do expert levels without missing an enemy type stuff. And like, I need to see somebody get really good at this game
on the Rock Band drums that they will hook up to their computer.
Mm-hmm. But it's cool. It's got that, the soundtrack is a variety. It is Danny B kind of at the forefront, but it's Danny B and friends. So I think you got some other composers in there, but all of it sounds of a kind. It is that kind of sort of Danny B flavored dance music. And so far, it's all real good.
Yeah.
Did you get the sense that as you're progressing in the story or the narrative, that there is a progress? Like you said, that you're meeting these people, they're working at different jobs. Are you like working towards something?
I think you're trying to get back to where you're from. Like you were rifted into this world, and now you're trying to figure out how to get back.
Okay, so it's not just random assortment of stuff. It is.
Yeah, they got here, took one look around, said "fuck this," and are now trying to get back to their own world.
Got it. Okay. That's Rift of the Necrodancer. That also released today at the time of this recording, the 5th. $20.
I'm pretty delighted by it so far.
Yeah, it's cool. It would be good on like Switch. I mean, I think it is on Switch.
That's the only console platform it is currently scheduled to come to.
Yeah, or Switch 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that'll make its way to other places. But when you're on the Switch, are they like, sorry, you should be using a keyboard? You should be using a keyboard.
Well, when that mouse function comes around, maybe they'll include a keyboard for your rhythm games.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Maybe it's not great on Switch.
I think the controller works fine. I spent the entire time just playing on the controller, even though they said,
really?
Hey, I don't know about that. And I didn't have a huge issue with it. Like, it is challenging for sure, but I think it's very doable.
I mean, I was hitting a lot of cases, though, on hard where you have to hit like left and right at the same time. And I don't know how. I mean, do they map it to the buttons, or do they do like button and D-pad?
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
Okay.
The D-pad and the face buttons all like
I see.
function the same way,
Okay.
and the down arrow when you press it is the all
Yes,
three at
yes,
once.
right. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is very usable as a controller thing. I just think it seems like the keyboard is the way to go if you can.
All right. Rift of the Necrodancer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, out now. The time of this recording.
And it just makes me want to play more Crypt of the Necrodancer. Also,
Great game. I've really spent some time, either tragically or whatever you want to say about this, maybe well spent, playing Total Warhammer 3.
Okay.
And
why is that tragic?
Because I got stuck in the prologue.
Oh.
Now the prologue. We're doing that feature with Mahardy, and I was like, "Look, let me make it through the prologue. I'm gonna make it through all this stuff." 6 hours later,
Oh my
in
god.
the prologue campaign, I'm like, I can't beat this army. I cannot defeat this army of Khorne, the Blood God army. I don't know. I've tried them like 4 times.
Wait, did you say Khorne, the Blood God?
Blood for the Blood God.
Is his name literally Khorne?
I think it's Khorne.
That's just Khorne. It's Jonathan Davis, the fucking Blood God?
Yeah, yes. And you get Blood for the Blood God. I believe that's... look, I don't know all of the Warhammer folk there. Like I said, I'm mostly a 40K person. I don't know I know Blood for the Blood Gods, was Skull for the Skull Throne. I don't know. They all have their own thing. But I got stuck. I was like getting wiped out constantly. So
I mean, he's the Blood God, man. He's not just a blood dude.
I know. It was just really demoralizing. So I had to actually go into that feature and be like, "Hey, man, I couldn't swing it. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. I'm a bad Warhammer person." That game has a lot of depth in it. And some folks have told me that I'm not very up on the Total War series at all, really. And some folks have said this one has more RPG stuff in it than maybe the other ones do. So
yeah, that would make sense with the fantasy trappings, because most of the Total War games are like super historical, right?
I really don't know. Are they supposed to be like is it more like a Civ, or is it more like, hey, you're actually in a battle here, or like is it like what's the word I'm looking for? Where they're mixing and matching time zones and heroes and people like that.
I always got the sense. I mean, I have not played them.
Anachronistic. Anachronistic.
Yes,
there you go.
I don't think so. I like, because it's like, oh, it's feudal Japan or it's Rome, or
okay.
I think they are pretty grounded and historical generally, so those would just not allow for like weird fantasy RPG power stuff as much.
Okay, so they're picking their war period and sticking with it.
I believe so.
Yeah, because this has hero units, it's got recruiting, it's got base upkeep, it's got technology trees you can go into and like upgrade your tech tree. You get more units by doing that. You get more growth. It's got a lot of like Civ style stuff, maybe not as big. It's got expansion, which might be in the other Total War stuff. I don't know. Like zone expansion as you take over other zones. It's got obviously then you're in the battle map, and that's the part where you're like, I'm flanking, I'm doing this, I'm bringing my cavalry around, which is super fun, like charge these infantry guys and then zoom out of there, because you add on top of that, you're like, oh, and here comes my dragon. Like that's that stuff is really interesting and fun. I just was on this map, and as soon as you take enough losses, reinforcements are coming in from behind. They plow through all my units. I can't do it, and it's a total defeat. Total Warhammer, total defeat. So I told Mahardy, teach me the ways.
Teach me your ways.
Yeah, and he's gonna hopefully teach me the ways. So like I said, we've got one episode. None of them are up yet. We're gonna probably record a couple there, and then we'll start rolling some of that stuff out. More news on that later, but he takes that stuff pretty seriously.
I never would have thought him to be a huge Total Warhammer guy. What is the other franchise he's like way into?
Warframe.
Yes, Warframe. Yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Man loves Warframe.
He's not alone in that.
No, not by a wide. I mean, again, they have their own fucking convention, for God's sakes.
TennoCon.
Yep,
that's the one.
Yeah, I wonder how that. What is it? What's the Warframe 19?
Warframe 1999.
Yeah, I wonder how that's doing.
I don't know.
Yeah, I suspect it's doing just fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could get into Warframe. I did it not too long ago.
Legally, you're allowed to.
I am allowed to, but like I saw the route. I saw the way. Like
you saw how that was going to go.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I get it, man. This is all right. This is pretty cool. A lot of different. I forget what they call them. Platforms, mechs, Tennos.
Whatever that bullshit is.
There's a lot of them in there.
Tenno, is that the enemies?
Isn't it you?
I think it's you. The Warframes, I believe, are part of the Tennos.
Platform is a good name for a mech suit.
Yes. That you're going to put things on.
It sounds very military.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to add to this weapons platform?
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of swords and knives and maybe some total Warhammer.
And the like.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where I spend a bunch of my time. Otherwise, not too much gaming time. I have not touched Dragon Age, which I thought is where I was going to spend more of my time. Also, have not touched Indiana Jones. Actually, that's not true. I touched it, went in, and then I kind of bounced right back out of it.
I think I might be done with that game.
Yeah. All right.
Are you guys both in Giza?
I'm past Giza.
Oh, you are.
I never even made it back out of the Vatican.
Oh, wow.
It was the last time I picked it up. I was like, I'm going to push. I'm just going to go straight for the story stuff. Played for a while, and then I think something like I had to go something with the kids or something. Paused it, and it was one of those things that came back, and it was just shut off. And I was like,
yeah.
Something else.
I think I just lost the momentum. You know, like that's a game where once you kind of lose it, you have to remember where you are and what you were even up to, and I think at a certain point, I kind of got what I wanted out of it, which is to say, I punched I mean, I've never got enough punching Nazis, but like I got quite enough Nazi punching and enough puzzle solving to where I felt like I got the gist. I just wasn't loving it.
I guess for me personally, I would like to just hit the next story beat to see if there's enough there to keep me going.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I slid off of it in a weird way that I didn't think I would after my initial playing of it, which was like, this is pretty cool. This is like really fun. And then was like, oh, maybe I'm burning out. We'll see. But we got plenty of other stuff coming up as we said, as I said, from the Planorama, not the least of which was what's the one at the end of the month? It's not Wild Hunt, which is what I want to say.
Monster Hunter.
Monster
Hunter Wilds.
Monster Hunter Wilds. You can see why Wild Hunt was mushmashed in my head. Which is do you know? Have you guys heard anything from its beta or for people who have played it? Is it?
No, the beta was last fall. I didn't really follow up too much on feedback from that. Actually, I probably should have, but I didn't play it. But I saw a very long guided demo of it last summer.
Okay,
was super impressed with it. So
yeah,
kind of like clued in at that moment. I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to play this. I'll just like sit tight and play it when it comes out.
I'm curious to see if the gaming world pauses for a second for that one. I kind of feel like it was a moment in the last one.
Yes. World definitely felt like, like everybody I know is playing this game. Yeah. This is kind of cool.
We'll see.
Like,
we'll see.
We don't have an office anymore, and we have fewer coworkers than we used to. But like, those, especially, or even going back to GameSpot, like one of those where you just walk into the office and like all anybody is talking about is that one game that everybody is playing right now.
Or when you log in on a console and like your entire friends list is playing
friends list, like that's a fun one. I hope the game seems cool.
Yeah. But that's at the end of the month.
Ready to make a suit of armor out of a carapace.
There you go. Plenty of other stuff too between now and then, but that is going to do it for our games section here. We're going to take another break and we're going to get to the news. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, and it is time for the news. And our first story here.
But not that news.
Yeah, please. No, it's not the news, capital The. It is just news.
So here's some news about video games.
It's time for VG News, video game news. Lot of layoffs.
Yeah.
This one is even weirder. There's like a dozen layoffs and a bunch of people who surprisingly don't work inside of BioWare anymore. Is that the case here?
Yeah, yes. This story has been unfolding over the last couple of weeks. It started when EA started messaging investors that not only Dragon Age, the Veilguard, but also what are we calling it? FC25? I just want to call it FIFA.
If you call it FIFA, I will allow it.
FC25, right, is the official name. Right?
Yes.
FC?
Yes.
Yeah, FC. EA Sports FC 25.
I still just, I don't.
It's too many syllables and
Yes.
none of them are good.
Yes, it doesn't mean enough to people who don't know that it's about soccer or football.
That's
like
fair.
FC.
Yes, I'm one of those people.
If you don't know, anyway, sorry. Both of those games underperformed. Like they basically said that Dragon Age missed their expectations by like half. And I don't know what is going on with FC, and I'm not going to even try to dig into it because I don't have a clue. But FC is a cash printing machine. Formerly FIFA, again, just to drive it home, like the FIFA Ultimate Club stuff. Like it just prints money. And I don't know why there has been a downturn in FIFA revenue. At any rate, the reason this is relevant is this was kind of our first sign that Dragon Age had maybe not sold to expectation.
Which, this might be outside of the scope of this news story, but Brad, do you know, I feel like I had heard the expectation was actually very high. Like it sold decently, but the expectation was
probably true.
Not astronomical, but very high.
It is very high, specifically because Inquisition did such an insane amount of money compared to just about every other BioWare game, I think.
Okay. You're seeing all kinds of stuff fly around out there. Who knows how much of it is fully true? I can't remember who it was I saw tweeting the other day or blue skying or whatever anyway.
Yes.
That originally the Veilguard, previously Dreadwolf, had like free to play or like live service hooks in it that got ripped out. Like the context was basically like, oh, I thought the game actually turned out okay considering there was live service stuff in there they ripped out. And then I think
what would be in there.
And then I think I saw an executive from EA recently, like in some interview somewhere, suggesting maybe it would have been done better if it was a live service game. Anyway,
I'm trying to think. Yeah.
And that's far afield of the actual story here. The actual story here is the BioWare has downsized pretty dramatically in the wake of Dragon Age coming out, and that investor messaging was the first time we kind of got a sense of what the sales for Veilguard were like. BioWare itself then, I believe, announced some restructuring on their part, but Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, as he often does, dug into the story more deeply and kind of came in with some relatively specific numbers. And the upshot is that they are down to under 100 people now at BioWare, which is down from around 200 a couple of years ago. So BioWare has gotten pretty scrappy all of a sudden, it seems.
Gotten pretty scrappy with a Mass Effect game on the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that BioWare's messaging was basically like the full studio was not required to support where Mass Effect is currently at in development. And a lot of, to be fair, a lot of those jobs were moved to other EA teams like Skate. And Iron Man, I believe, is another one that was named. But it sounds like
I always forget they're making that game.
Yes, like I had to go refresh myself on this. EA has both an Iron Man and a Black Panther game on the way. Don't forget. But it sounds like a lot of people thought that those moves, that being loaned out to other teams might be temporary, and then it's not.
Which really sucks.
Yeah, it's not great, although it's probably still better than losing your job, I guess.
Yeah,
100%. But like, just not knowing, like, just not knowing if this is a permanent or temporary move when you are thinking you're going back to working at a particular unit.
Yeah. I mean, look, like you said, it's better than losing your job, but it is not ideal to be shuffling people around the company to different things, like without a lot of certainty.
Yeah, definitely not. But
some people did lose their job. It was like,
there were layoffs.
Some people did, in fact, just get terminated, unfortunately. I don't think this is like a reason to undermine confidence in Mass Effect necessarily. It sounds like there are quite a few veterans of Mass Effect. They're still working on it at the moment. Like I recognized a couple of the names in the list that I saw. But it's still just like another chapter in the ongoing saga of BioWare, right? For the last,
yeah.
God, dude, I think Andromeda came out in 2017, right? It's been almost the last like 10 years. It's been about the last 8 years of BioWare has been this like
struggle.
constant question of where is BioWare going? Are they going to make it?
And look, there's a lot of real bummers about this story, but I feel like the thing that is like the extra kick in the teeth here is that Veilguard reviewed very well. Like it did sell. Like it didn't make those the Inquisition numbers, but those, like, again, every bit of reporting I saw said that Inquisition was a big time outlier as far as like sales for BioWare games generally are. And I think if they thought they were just going to be recreating that, like, especially with so many years in between, that's getting into like Square Enix, like, this is fucking malpractice level fucking projection territory.
Yeah, I mean, Inquisition was in that direct Skyrim, like post Skyrim, like fantasy RPG boom. You know, like Witcher 3 was also in there, where games like that were just doing extremely well because there was so much appetite for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, well, I would just say the thing that maybe is a little scary for Mass Effect is, if they see that and they lose market value, right? Are they willing to take the risk maybe they need to take on Mass Effect, or like you mentioned earlier, Brad, does that sentiment that maybe came out, maybe it's just rumor about, hey, these hooks were taken out of this should be a live service thing, do those start being listened to more inside the company?
I hope not.
Yeah, that's the part that starts getting a little worrisome, right?
Or actually, I mean, let me walk that back a little bit, like, not in the main game, at least. Like, people love the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Like the people who were into the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer were extremely into it, because it's like a wave-based survival, like horde mode kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I was actually pretty bummed that by the time I got around to that game, you could not really play that anywhere.
Yeah,
I was into it for a bit. I think you played it for a bit, right, Brad?
Yeah, I got into it a little bit. I think there might still be ways to get it working, at least on the PC. I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
But point is, I would be okay with like some side mode like that's got online hooks in it. Like, that's not the end of the world, but I hope they were just making a Mass Effect game at the core.
Yeah, I like Veilguard is not my favorite BioWare game by a long shot, so I wouldn't say like just redo Dragon Age, but BioWare, right? Like,
yeah, it's not that simple. But
I don't like that template they used for the Veilguard necessarily.
Well, the thing that worries me, you're talking about the risks that they will need to take for a new Mass Effect and all of that. I mean, based on what Veilguard was and kind of where things seem to be headed with BioWare in their station with EA, I kind of feel like Mass Effect might actually have to be one of the most risk-free things they do going forward.
What is that then?
A game that is a lot like a lot of other video games.
Hey, remember Liara?
Yeah.
Hey, remember Shepard?
Yeah.
Who else is biologically still alive at the who else is a type of alien that could still conceivably be alive from the previous games in this?
Well,
put them
not
in
even
there
just the story, but just like as a game, like as a design of the game. Yeah.
What is the least risky thing in 2027, whenever this game might come out? What is the least risky thing to put out now? I really don't
Mass
even know.
Effect 2 again.
Right. I mean, like, what's the game type, right?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Because 6 years ago, I might have said, "Oh, it's going to be Liara, Shepard, and Garrus on one team." Get your team together versus another team shooter. But I really don't know. Is it? I don't know what the market wants right now.
I don't think the market knows what the market wants right now. I don't think EA knows what the market or itself wants right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely still room for a really good, sprawling, well-written action RPG, but
I want that.
But it needs to be all of those things, like the writing really needs to be on it, and like the Andromeda writing extremely was not in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
It needs a lot of stuff in it, like a lot of just straight up content, and they're down to a small team. Like I'm sure they will staff back up as full production starts, and assuming the executives like what they're seeing and everything. So like, I don't think that's a huge problem necessarily, but like, I guess what I'm saying is like a really good traditional Mass Effect game probably would do just fine if they can pull that off.
Yeah, I think they can pull that off. The question is, will it excite people to whatever degree that EA has inflated it? Because it sounds like, their expectation is they should be hitting whatever marks they were hitting the last time they touched this franchise. Now, granted, I think everyone has just forgotten about Andromeda and would probably skip back to, let's say, Mass Effect 3 era, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think there's a fandom out there, and I think that game will sell, but I don't think you're going to be hitting Inquisition numbers with that one either.
Yeah, I mean, from what I could tell, that Legendary Edition, the 1 through 3 remaster collection that they did extremely well.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
So it seems like there's still a lot of appetite for good Mass Effect.
For the good Mass Effect.
As long as they make good Mass Effect, yes.
I bought 2 copies of it just to have.
Yeah.
That's how much I like Mass Effect.
It's a fantastic top 5 franchise. Will Skate and Iron Man bring their stock prices back up, and will everything be fine? Considering we forgot they're even making an Iron Man game, I don't know. Skate is one of those ones that could also be like, there might be this weird eagerness for Skate. Like there was a kind of low rumble for Skate, but that thing might hit, and there might be like a real roar for Skate.
But it was like a meme stock, you know?
It was like a meme stock,
That was off the back of, was it PewDiePie, or who was it? Which influencer went super hard on Skate 3?
Oh, I can't remember.
Which felt like the beginning of the resurgence of Skate, and that's so long ago that I can't even remember the influencer now.
You are very right that it is a long time ago. So here's my thing on Skate 4. I think that if Activision had continued to go down the Tony Hawk path in a meaningful way, they might have a tougher road to hoe, but after getting 1 and 2 and then just the cutoff, there is a voracious skating audience out there that just needs something.
You're totally right. There kind of is nothing. And I shouldn't say nothing.
There's good indie games. Yes, there are some fun indie games for sure, but they are not doing the same things that those kinds of games are trying to do generally.
Right. Of course, Skate was always the more technical,
much more,
skating thing next to the more Tony Hawk arcade kind of thing. But we'll see.
I do have one more thing to ask, is particular to you, Brad. In the Video Games Chronicle story you linked out for this, there's a quote here that says, "A small team led by veteran employees is currently working on Mass Effect 5 and will likely expand as production ramps up." How do you like them referring to Mass Effect Andromeda as Mass Effect 4?
Yeah, I think this is their shorthand. I don't think EA has ever called it Mass Effect 5, have they?
I don't know. I just laughed at being like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't call Andromeda Mass Effect 4.
I don't disagree.
Call it Mass Effect call it MEA colon A.
It's Mass Effect Andromeda 1. It's a different franchise. It's not. I mean, I don't want to be too cruel to that game. I mean, I really did not have the best experience with it, but
no one did.
It did at least get better after launch, but
I can tell you right now, you were not wrong about that game.
Well, I mean, the way to nip that in the bud is to call this new game Mass Effect 4.
They really. Do you think they do that? Or do you think they call it subtitle?
I bet it's. We're just in like a really subtitle heavy era in culture right now.
Sure. You think if they had called this Dragon Age Inquisition 2 or something like that it would have been done better?
That would have been funny.
Maybe it would have been better if it was called
Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
We're just going to skip over Mass Effect 3. Pretend that never happened. That kid in the forest, none of that shit.
Just Mass Effect 2.
I
would really laugh if they called it. What if they called it Mass Effect Trilogy 2?
Mass Effect 2, The Return.
The second trilogy.
Nothing better than a nested franchise, you know. It's like Dark Forces 3, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
It doesn't really make much sense, but or that Mass Effect Return of Shepard, right? That'll get a lot of people to just put it right there. Or like Mass Effect romancing Liara.
Shepard goes to college.
I hope they don't bring Shepard back unless it was the Control ending. I'm sure I've said this on this podcast before. I feel like that's the only interesting angle you could take with Shepard being in the new game, is if Shepard is a Reaper.
Shepard the villain.
I ended up with Synthesis, right? That's where we landed.
Oh, canonically?
Well, I mean, that's the one I accidentally walked into.
With Tali by your side? Yeah, I think that might be
Tali, who is definitely alive by completely natural circumstances, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's probably the one.
I went straight Destroy, despite having played the most Paragon run through all 3 games you could possibly do. I went straight to Destroy.
Okay. Do it. Take them out. That means they're isolated, right? That's like everybody gets the Mass Effect relays. Or
yes, they're kind of stuck because all that shit is broken now.
Destroy is the one that destroys all synthetics. So it destroys the Reapers, but also the Geth. So
right.
Like that's and Edie, I believe, also dies in that ending, right? Like the idea is like, hey, we can destroy all synthetics, so then the Reapers are gone, but we really mean all synthetics.
Oh, wasn't there one that destroys the Mass Effect relays as well? Because
that was
Control
just
is the one where you
that might have been Synthesis. I think
Control is the one where Shepard ascends to godhood and takes control of all the Reapers and becomes this disembodied godlike consciousness.
I know they did add some extra stuff later on, so I don't want to confuse.
Yeah, I can't remember. That was the extended cut. changed the endings pretty dramatically. I can't remember. I think the relays blew up in all endings originally. Is that right?
Did they? Okay, I don't.
Or maybe it was just synthesis. I don't know, man. Like,
it's been too long.
How is it 2025? We're talking about the ending to Mass Effect 3.
Yes. So, yep. As always, shout outs to folks who were laid off, and shout outs to people who thought they were working for BioWare, and then suddenly they're not working at BioWare. They're working on a different team.
Yeah, that's less bad than losing your job, but that still does suck for sure. Best wishes to everybody, and best wishes to the remaining BioWare team,
and EA.
And we hope Mass Effect is good.
I'm looking forward to your Mass Effect game.
Yeah, seriously.
Speaking of layoffs, this happened right before the podcast. Like, in fact, I think after we started, maybe. Iron Galaxy.
Yeah.
Friends of the show, to be clear. I'm guessing a good number of people listening to this podcast are familiar with Dave Lang, who we are certainly friendly with. But Iron Galaxy has laid off 66 developers.
Which sounds like maybe a good chunk of we don't know the total staff.
Yeah, their current total staff.
Wikipedia said as of 2 years ago, 250 employees. So that's like 25% of staff, which is pretty significant. They put up a LinkedIn post, which is where this news came from. That's pretty heartfelt. In total, we have reduced our employee base by 66 people. This was a means of last resort for us. It's a measure we do not take lightly to enable our long-term survival.
So most recently, the thing they had worked on was The Last of Us, like PC port, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I pulled them up I closed the Wikipedia tab. I shouldn't have done that.
Okay. So but then the last original thing they made was Rumbleverse.
Yeah. Yes. So Rumbleverse was that kind of melee. Oh my God. Battle Royale.
It's a 40-person battle royale where you're just running around beating people up.
Battle Royale has fallen enough out of favor that I've forgotten what it's called. But yeah, they have not made a ton of original games. The last game before that was in 2018. They haven't published games since even before that. So they've mostly been back in their role as a support studio. So this seems ominous.
Right, like as the industry goes.
Yeah, this seems ominous because you would think even with a contraction in AAA that there would probably still be a fair amount of port and engineering support type work go around.
Yeah.
So if they are having to lay off large numbers of people, then that is a pretty rotten sign about the state of the business.
I feel like the last thing I heard was that maybe some funding was starting to shake loose and some stuff in the last couple of months, but that, even if that's the case and they're starting to drum up work now, that's probably a long stretch where they just haven't had anything on the books.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also really hard with all of those reports that keep getting circulated that it's just a lot of the same games that are just getting played over and over again.
Yeah, that's certainly part of it.
People aren't buying into new ecosystems.
If you're a support house, that's really hard, right?
I would think the Switch 2 would create a fair amount of this type of work because it's going to be powerful enough that even rumors are saying a lot more games are probably going to start getting ported to the Switch 2 from other platforms, but maybe they don't have access to that. I mean, they could be working on Switch 2 games now. I don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Maybe they don't have access to development hardware yet, or maybe this will help lift them back up later. But for now, it's a bummer to see. The comments on the LinkedIn post are I don't have a LinkedIn login. I can't read all of them, but I saw a good number, and they're all very glowing from people from other companies that are commenting on this. Just people, even a couple of people who interviewed there and didn't actually even get the job, still had very nice things to say about how they run things there. And there's people just saying hiring people saying oh, I know the quality of Iron Galaxy employees. They certainly, if we have open positions, they are certainly welcome here. So seems like pretty positive response from people who know the company. So I do take them at their word that this was not done lightly.
Dave always seemed to be very employee focused.
Yeah. Yes.
At least the personal interactions with him.
Yeah.
So, I assume this was extremely hard, and right, like you said, Brad, take him at his word. That's the last resort.
Yeah, and a very smart guy also.
Yeah,
behind the bluster and persona, that man is a game developer, as a game developer.
Yeah. Yeah. Best of luck to everybody there as well. It's, hopefully not a portent,
I mean, the portents have been going for some time now. Yeah. It's just, this is one that you thought might skate by without being heavily affected. But I mean, yeah, like you said, if these kinds of support studios are even having a hard time, that's that does not indicate anything good.
No.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how this works, and I don't want to linger too long here, but you mentioned the Switch 2. I wonder if there's any of that work, and this is probably just internal at Microsoft, of bringing stuff over to the PlayStation. Like, you know, are there and I don't just mean Microsoft, but as Sony wants to bring more stuff to the PC, Microsoft wants to bring more stuff to the PlayStation. We are seeing a kind of a resurgence, a surgence in first party trying to get their stuff other places.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just jump in with this now since you mentioned it, because it's barely a story. It's not barely a story, but there's not a ton to say about it. But Forza Horizon 5 is coming to the PS5. They have announced, and yes, that is a great example of Panic Button is the studio bringing that over,
right?
Not Playground. Okay. Like Panic Button, I had to look them up because they sounded familiar. Like they've done some of the like Bethesda ports to Switch, for example, of like Doom 2016 and stuff like that. So they are another big like porting house, like technical developer that gets games on other platforms. So yes,
and they are completely outside of Microsoft. They are,
I believe, Panic Button,
or not part of Microsoft.
Yeah, I think they're independent as far as I
know. Yeah, so that is exactly what I mean. Like, if some of that work is getting out there, I mean, it's probably not enough for multiple houses to survive on. Microsoft puts out like 5 games a year that they're bringing over to other places, but yeah. That Forza news is definitely interesting.
Everything is an Xbox. Remind yourself of that every single time one of these comes around. That is the thing they believe now.
I mean, I think I made the joke a while ago, but I kind of just sincerely believe they should have done it when they were doing that. This is an Xbox campaign. They should have just slapped a PS5 on one of those.
Yeah. Honestly, it might have been the best, like, a little bit of a callback to the whole, used games thing of like, how do you trade used games on a PlayStation? They can just say, hey, how do you play Xbox games on a fucking PlayStation? How about that?
I mean, that might not have gone over well with Sony, to be fair.
I mean, what is going over well with Sony these days?
Helldivers.
I mean, internally, is it? I mean, that whole thing seems like it's been nothing but strife.
It's been a year now. I think it's kind of like just humming along, but not like super flashy.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I think you said it, but just to clarify, this is Forza Horizon. This is not
Forza Horizon 5
proper.
Yeah, Forza Horizon 5. So not even the most recent Forza game to come along, but definitely, to me at least, you tell me, but like Forza definitely feels like the most like tightly Xbox associated franchise that Sony has gotten so far.
So far, yeah. I think we can say, like, if Master Chief winds up on a PlayStation,
that's a whole other ball game.
I'm talking of games that have been announced so far.
Absolutely. Like this is green. This is Xbox green.
The only stuff that is more Xbox to me is basically Gears and Halo, and like maybe Fable or something like that. But like Forza is a Microsoft ass franchise.
Yeah.
Like in fact, it was the answer to Gran Turismo.
That's what I was getting at with this being Horizon. Like, you still have your Turismo on PlayStation, your Forza on Xbox. This is just a little taste of the Forza Horizon coming to the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because if it were true Forza Motorsport going to Sony to a PlayStation, then if you are a car lover, then you're probably on PC playing something. But if you are now really on a PlayStation, because I don't think Gran Turismo is coming to an Xbox anytime soon.
Nope.
Probably not.
But it will be really interesting to see if Motorsport does end up coming over at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't have guessed that Horizon would have made it after that first batch of stuff was announced. So yeah, and they said they're in that story from the Microsoft team. They're adding like a custom, I didn't know there was custom creator stuff in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Alex, did you keep up with this stuff? Is it Horizon Realms, I think is the name of this mode, or the Evolving Worlds is this like user content? I'm really not clear what that's about exactly.
I have barely touched Forza like proper since it came out, and Forza Horizon 5 I've not really touched in at least a year, so I've not kept up with any of that stuff.
Horizon Realms will give players the chance to explore a curated collection of some of the community's favorite previously released evolving worlds. I'm not up on the post-release content in Horizon 5, but
no, I played a lot of Horizon 5, but once I hit my wall, I was kind of done with it.
The other thing I wonder about, I think I mentioned this about Indiana Jones. That'll be out, I think, also this spring sometime on the PS5. I'm curious to see if this game gets pro enhancements. I don't think Microsoft thinks this way anymore. Like, they wouldn't be running this as an Xbox campaign if they did, but like, it's going to be a little conspicuous to me if their game comes out looking dramatically better on the competitor's platform,
Sure.
Like, or it's just a sign of the times, like, it's just very much like makes their intent clear that like, hey, we just want to like put good games out and sell them on whatever and not worry about the PlayStation version being way better than the Xbox one.
Definitely. There is a little blurb here towards the end of this release on the Microsoft side that I don't know. It's what you write in a press release, but the part where it says, if you already own the game on another platform, share the news with your friends in the PS5 community.
Please.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got crossplay.
It's got crossplay, right? So
yeah,
I mean, that's how they set up the crossplay line. But it is definitely like, hey, if you have friends that have a PlayStation, let them know.
Please
tell them they own an Xbox. Maybe they don't realize it. They do.
Spread. We know you know somebody who has a PlayStation, so tell them to play some Forza, please, and then
please spread the good word about the Xbox on your PlayStation.
Buy some stuff.
I didn't put it in the news, but there was like another report about Xbox hardware sales being down yet again out in the last day or two. Like, it's just
I didn't think they were going to go up. I'm going to be honest with you.
That trend continues. So, anyway. That's that. I kind of threw that in because it dovetailed with the Iron Galaxy news, and condolences to those folks, of course.
But
then I guess let's just get the last bummer news out of the way here. Multiversus is shutting down. The Warner Brothers, what do we call them? Platform fighters, right?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good enough.
The Warner Brothers, Smash Brothers, like.
The IP fighter.
Season 5 just started, and it will be the last season.
Yep.
And the crazy thing is, when season 5 ends at the end of May, they are taking the game down.
Yep.
Like, they are delisting it.
What are we doing?
Like, they're turning off like currency purchases right now. Like, you can still spend whatever gleamium you already have, but you can't buy more. But there's a full on process here. All online features will continue to be available until the season concludes on May 30th. At that point, there will still be an option to play the game offline. To do this, you'll need to install and download the latest version of the game and log in during Season 5. Anytime between now and May 30th at 9 a.m. After logging in, a local save file will be automatically created connected to your PSN, Microsoft Store, Steam, or Epic Games account, allowing you to enjoy the game offline with all earned and purchased content moving forward. Like, what does that mean for if you have to get your console replaced, or
nothing good? You
lose that save file, or
it's an extremely good question. Or you uninstall it.
Like, I assume you're still going to be able to download the game again if you delete it once you buy it, quote unquote, once you license it as a free to play game.
Yeah.
Like, I assume you'll still be able to
get it patched before the date there.
I think as far as this is for authenticating people's like purchases online, I think if you never bought anything with money in this game, you probably don't care too much about this unless there's like progress you're trying to save. This is mainly like, hey, we need you to log into the server one last time to generate a save file that lets you keep using your purchases after the servers go down.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it makes you wonder, like, how much availability will this game still have after May 30th? Like 2-3 years from now, will you still be able to go download it and pull that save out of the cloud and continue playing it? Or is this game just going to like
quietly disappear?
Yeah, like fairly rapidly disappear, which would be very appropriate for a Warner Brothers product these days.
Well, I mean, we have to, we're burying the lead slightly on this thing. Let's remind ourselves, they literally unreleased this game at one point.
Yeah, that whole thing was so weird. I mean, it makes sense.
Let's be clear. Their whole thing about, that was actually a beta, like, that was bullshit, right? Because they never said this was just a beta.
Well, it seemed like it would come back relatively quickly, and then how long was it? It was like well over a year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a while.
And like they changed engines in the interim, and like I don't think it hit the same way when it came back. I'm not sure if it was quite as functional. People seem to really like that first like beta soft release.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Like, I don't love platform fighters. I don't think, they're not really my thing, but like it was a completely cromulent Smash clone. Like, it did enough of those things well enough, and it had a weird enough character selection that I think it skated by on a little bit of weird charm more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. I don't know how, like, I mean, from a game preservation standpoint, is this game going to become scarce after this? I don't know.
I think so.
It sounds like that's a possibility.
What is WB doing?
I don't know.
Like, broadly speaking, what is WB doing with their games division these days? And you don't need to remind me about Harry Potter still selling very well, but I mean, beyond that, like, what is going on? Like, Mortal Kombat 1 feels like it's kind of dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, it kind of really does.
It's still in, like, fighting game tournaments, but it definitely did not recapture the glory days of Mortal Kombat as far as, like, everyone playing it long term.
Yeah, I really need to go back and, I forgot that came out. I really need to go play the story add-on that came out for that.
Yeah, Suicide Squad fell on its face. Like, what's going on with that publisher right now? I'm not asking you to actually answer that because you don't work there, and I realize that. I'm speaking rhetorically, Bad business, I think.
Bad business, yeah.
You know, there's still the Monolith Wonder Woman game is still in production.
Right.
But who knows what the state of that is, because I don't think they've ever actually shown it.
Not in a major way, no.
Yeah, not a lot going on with them at the moment, really.
I feel like that division is going to get sold at some point.
Well, you know, that was the talk for a long time, is that, like, NetherRealm thought they might get sold off at some point, or, like, you know, there was all kinds of, you know, the Zaslav era has been an interesting one.
I honestly think, I don't think it's that they're going to sell off pieces of it. I think they're just going to get rid of their gaming division at some point and sell it to someone else.
Yep. Anyway, they won't have to worry about
purely
multiverses.
Speculative, just based on feeling and vibes, but
kinda
it's
like
just something
like a LucasArts kind of thing. Like, we're not going to do any in-house development for our IPs. We're just going to farm all this out.
We're just going to get out of game publishing, or like Disney. Honestly, like Disney is the more prime example because they have, like, come in and out of actual game publishing multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that would entail selling off their studios, obviously, as well.
Yeah, it would be the whole thing.
That was the talk, was that they were looking to offload NetherRealm, maybe Monolith.
Oh, right. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, get rid of the studios that are doing your best work.
Yeah. They own all the studios, so it wouldn't just be IP licensing.
Multiversus.
Yep.
I did look into their FAQ for a second there, and it does, like you said, Brad, you will be able to re-download after that date, but you need that local save.
So that's kind of what I suspected, is that you can still get the client again, but you had better safeguard that save.
Yeah, I'll just read it here for if anybody is actually concerned about it. Can players reinstall Multiversus after Season 5 ends? Players who delete or uninstall the game prior to the end of Season 5 will be able to reinstall after May 30th. Please note, to access earned and purchased content offline after May 30th, players will need to install or download the latest version of the game and log in during Season 5. That's the one that ends May 30th. After logging in, a local save will be automatically created, connected to a PlayStation Network, Microsoft Source, blah, 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 to enjoy the game offline with everything you have.
What are they gaining by that? Like, the game's going offline. They're already not taking money for it anymore.
Lawsuits. Like I can't access the stuff I paid for.
No. I mean, what are they gaining by not just, like,
serving that, like
letting you use everything in there? Or, I mean, well, you know, it is a free game. Like, I guess they don't want to just unlock everything and give it to you. I don't even know if there are any legal issues around doing that, but, like,
I see. Just have it be like, hey, this is open now.
Yeah, like, hey, just go nuts. Here's everything. But like, I don't know if that entails unlocking characters and stuff, and if there's any contractual limitations on stuff like that. But, like, you know, the point is, it's a free to play game with a lot of content locked behind a paywall that no longer exists. So not just maybe giving you a mechanism to enjoy that stuff another way, kind of a bummer, but yeah.
Can I grind the battle passes?
Right. But, you know, that probably would have taken development work that they're not willing to invest to even implement something like that.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is the bigger, not the biggest question. One of the questions is, like, you kind of mentioned it, like, this game locally or against AI opponents is, like, that's not the thing, right?
No.
Well, it would, except at tournaments. Like, that's the one place I could see this maybe still living on, is that there's probably going to be maybe there will be a scene around it going forward at tournaments.
Yeah, there will still be people running money matches at fucking Evo or whatever, you know.
But yeah, like, broadly, the game is dead, of course.
man, I'm just looking at this roster. It's just so ridiculous, man. The way they approach this, it's like, hey, here's Beetlejuice and fucking 2 of the Gremlins and the Banana Guard from fucking Adventure Time, and then here's Black Adam because whoops.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that one is a little embarrassing. I mean, like there was a time in my life where I would have been very offended by the inclusion of the Iron Giant in this.
Mm-hmm.
But now, yes, this whole thing is so absurd that it's hard not to like kind of get on board with it.
I mean, it's less offensive than the Iron Giant in Ready Player One. So
yes, you're not wrong about that. LeBron James is a character in this game
because of the Space Jam movie he was in specifically.
It's the Space Jam version of LeBron James.
Actually, this roster a little smaller than I would have thought.
It did not, because that's the thing. They took that big long chunk of downtime, and I kind of felt like they lost a bunch of chances to get some stuff in there in that game during that time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, public announcements. If you're into multiverses and you hadn't heard, which I would suspect if you're into multiverses, you've heard. So.
Yes.
All right.
Apologies to all the Lola Bunny mains out there.
Next up here, Alex.
Yes.
A game you and I both adore. The Sleepy Dogs.
Sleepy Dogs. As it is known colloquially.
Did you see, I think it was Wario 64.
He only calls it that.
Sleepy Dogs, and then the Lou, I think it was Lou, was like, what the hell is a sleepy dog? But yes, anyway, the movie's not dead. The franchise might be dead on consoles. Or is it?
I don't know. Because Simu Liu is talking a lot of fucking game here, and I don't really know what's going on, but so there was the Sleeping Dogs movie that was in development hell for a long time, a number of years. Donnie Yen was attached to that.
True to Sleeping Dogs form. That's how you have to go.
It's extremely delayed, and if anything does come out, nothing will ever be followed up on it. That is the curse of Sleeping Dogs. But so the Donnie Yen movie was just in development hell forever. It never got anywhere. Yen has actually been on record saying, like, I put a lot of time and effort into this. I even put some of my own money into this. And he seemed pretty miffed about the fact that it did not come together. So now all of a sudden, here we are, and Simu Liu is out here saying that, like, actually, I'm doing it. And I'm very mixed on this. I don't necessarily think that a movie based on a game, based on an entire genre of movies, is super appealing to me, but it would have been a lot more appealing to me if Donnie Yen was involved, because Donnie Yen fucking rules. And Simu Liu, I do not have that same affection for.
Fair.
I don't think I've seen him in anything. Has he had much of a career before Marvel?
Shang-Chi was a big boost for his career. He was also in the Barbie movie, and he's been in a handful of other things. I mean, look, I don't really have any strong opinions about him. I've heard not great things about what it's like to work with him, but beyond that, I don't know anything really about him. I just did not think he was like a particularly charismatic presence in Shang-Chi. And, you know, again, we're already kind of talking about a photocopy of a photocopy here, movie to game to movies.
Yeah.
But I think with Donnie Yen, maybe you had something, and at least at like kind of a B-movie action level, but like, I don't know what this is going to be.
Yeah, that thought struck me as well, because like the pitch for Sleeping Dogs, the video game, is amazing. It's like, hey, it's Grand Theft Auto except Hong Kong action cinema in the John Woo vein. Like,
yeah,
like that pitch sells itself, but then yeah, like when you filter that back to a movie, like now it is just like many other Hong Kong action. You know what I mean? Like it loses the unique hook of being in a different medium.
And not to mention, it's Hong Kong action. It's Hong Kong action in the vein that they are still making today. Like, these kinds of movies still get made in Hong Kong and China a lot. So it's not like there's some long stretch of nostalgic wave where you're like, oh, man, to go back there. It's like, nah, man, they're still making these things. Donnie Yen is still making these things.
I don't know. I love that game. I think my memory of the action in that game is still extremely tight, and there's nothing quite like it, but it is also a product of its time. Like
its time being 13 years ago?
2012.
Like open world, run around, jump in cars, slam people's
date
heads
Emma Stone.
Doors. Yeah.
Fight Tom Wilkinson.
Oh my God. I I must have known this at some time and completely forgotten about it. This game, Sleeping Dogs, was originally a true crime game.
It was, yes.
Oh my god, I'm that is too funny for me to not have known that at some point.
I think True Crime LA was such a like limp release that they eventually just gave up on that branding entirely.
Sure. Yeah, now I'm looking, god, it started under Activision.
Yes, it did.
And then they sold it to Square Enix, and then they renamed it to Sleeping Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a
great
thing
game
at the time, right? Right. I would say it's like a surprisingly great game for how troubled that development was. I really don't have that much interest in the movie.
No. I think you can, again, make a completely competent action movie out of this. It's just like, why? They're already making plenty of great, competent Hong Kong action movies that are the sort of thing that this game was inspired by.
But then there's like hints, at least in this reporting, from some quotes. What is it? First a movie, then a sequel game for everyone. That's always been the dream. And I'm like, I don't know if is that how it goes?
I don't know. But if Simu Liu is able to somehow get an actual Sleeping Dogs like game sequel off the ground and it doesn't suck, I will take back some of the things I said about him.
All right.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Well, like, is Square Enix still own that?
I don't know. I assume so.
Yeah,
that studio is out of business.
So, like, yeah, are they going? Square Enix going to green light a Sleeping Dogs game?
Probably not.
No one knows, least of all Square Enix.
Yeah, I don't know.
What a world.
Yeah, what a world. What a world. So maybe, who knows? Good transition there. What a world. What a world. Alex's next story. About drones and how not to use them.
And it's not about the New Jersey drones. We never did figure out what was up with those, did we?
No, they just like vanished, didn't they?
Kinda, yeah.
I think they said they were all, said like something like they were all legally allowed to be in the air or something like that. I don't know.
That sounds like what they would say if they
weren't. That is
weren't.
exactly what they would say.
Yeah, but we're not talking about those drones. We're talking about idiot drones piloted by idiots. Specifically, we are talking about one of the co-founders of Treyarch. Peter Ackman, who was most recently at Skydance, but is also apparently not there anymore, is the guy who apparently flew the drone that damaged one of the firefighting planes during the LA fires.
Was this like new? Excuse me, not the Treyarch founder being involved, but just the collision with the drone? Was that news that made headlines? I missed that in the first place.
So there was a lot flying around when those fires were going off because shit was fucking crazy on the ground there. But one of the stories I did see crop up was that like they literally had to ground one of their planes because it collided with a drone that was in airspace it should not have been in.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah.
And they had a do not fly drones.
Yes, there was an order out there saying stay out of these airspaces because this is where we are flying to do the firefighting. So what happened was Ackerman was apparently flying his drone, trying to get footage of the fires and the devastation behind it, I think. And what he says is that at some point the software failed and he lost control and direction of the drone. But obviously, whether or not he was able to, completely control it or not, it was still in an area it should not have been. And so he technically could face up to a year in jail if he is if the book is thrown at him, but it seems more likely what he is going to have to do is pay a bunch of money and do some community service around the wildfires, which is usually what we do when rich people do something really fucking stupid. But this is really fucking stupid.
Hey, look, man, you're a rich guy. You got a cool drone. There's some crazy shit going on. You just got to get out there and survey it for yourself, right?
No, you absolutely do not. You absolutely do not have to do that. That is...
Nope.
It's always just funny to me when Treyarch comes up because I had to test Treyarch games for one of my first jobs in the industry. They made the hockey games for 2K for a while there before they became part of the Activision glob. Call
of Duty machine.
Yeah, they were just making the hockey games for 2K. And now look where they are.
Yep.
This is a very anger-inducing story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts of this story that make me very angry. The part where he was fined $65,000 for the cost of the repairs to the plane. to me does not feel like enough to mitigate some of that anger. Like they had to down this plane for repairs. Maybe you have to pay for some of the potential damages for this plane not being in the air.
Right. Yeah. Probably very hard to determine exactly what those were, but yeah, like how many like additional houses might have burned because they lost a plane.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing. And look, I mean, the real thing is it's very tempting to direct a lot of anger that you can't really direct anywhere at this Yahoo, because, you know, the whole thing was such a fucking tragedy, and, like, you know, people who do any kind of interference or cause any kind of problem are naturally going to draw the most ire. I think what he did was remarkably stupid, and he deserves to be punished, but I also think I'm trying to hold back a little bit, because anyone who fucks with something like giant city-consuming wildfires is going to draw a lot of heat.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes.
Some of it is absolutely deserved.
You know, I'm just going to say in general, going forward, woe betide any rich people who get on the public's bad side for the foreseeable future.
Do not fuck around, because you will be finding out.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is very much me bringing my own personal feelings into this. I assume he has done very well for himself. I assume he had $65,000 is not going to break this bank here.
I mean, so I don't care, but yeah, I probably not.
Well, I only care because it would for so many other people.
Yeah.
So, like, being able to get out of prison time and pay a fine and just do your community service, where somebody else who has to pay $65,000 seems like shit to me, right? Like,
yeah,
that seems like it's like when it is not exactly the same, but it is a similar feeling I have to when somebody who gets a $200 speeding ticket is fucked versus somebody who is $200 speeding ticket every day, right? Because they don't care about paying it. Not to say this is exactly the same case. I think the bigger thing to me is, like, I'm just not a drone guy. I just fucking around with drones, especially getting footage of a wildfire, like while you're in an area that is trying to be evacuated or serviced.
Deeply inconsiderate at the absolute best.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing about drones to me lately, granted I watch a lot more movies and TV than I used to, so maybe it's not like that new, but like how drones have kind of subtly affected filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not subtly.
Yeah.
Or maybe
in
not
some
so
very
subtle
broad ways.
In some cases, but like we're watching Station 11 right now, and there's a really noticeable shot in that show of, like, a character is just making her way through the woods at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the type of shot you never could have gotten when you needed a helicopter to get that kind of shot. You know, like, it's just a very long overhead pan in a way that's, like, very steady and close in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, this is kind of cool to see. Like, this is just camera work you could not have seen 20 years ago, because it wasn't like physically possible to get a shot like that. And it's like that's at least kind of interesting.
I guess I should clarify. Like, I think drones for certain circumstances are actually kind of amazing. Filming, rescue, reconnaissance, that kind of stuff. It's the personal drone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Especially the kind of miscreant personal drone that causes trouble for people.
Like, doing reconnaissance to see where the fire is using a drone, so you don't have to put a pilot up there. Like, great, sure. Yeah. Using a drone because you want to get sick footage to put on your social media feed. Not saying that's what was happening here, but, like, that to me is, you know, like a difference there.
Yeah, I kind of want to go to a drone show sometime.
Go to a drone show.
See, that means something very different to me, because I like drone metal. So that's basically just dudes with really sludgy guitars just making hella feedback.
I've seen.
You know, it was fun watching the drone races they used to have at the Maker Faire.
Yeah.
Like, those things were super cool.
I've seen some drone shows on YouTube, but I kind of want to go to one in person.
Those are like the big light shows, basically, right? The coordinated light shows.
It kind of feels like cyberpunk fireworks, honestly. Like, it's hundreds of drones in the air that light up different colors, and they make, like, really elaborate, like, 3D shapes in the air.
Oh, drones.
Yeah.
Last story here, Brad.
Yes, this is for me, I guess, or maybe you guys care. I don't know. Shuhei Yoshida of Sony is still doing his kind of like retirement podcast tour.
A farewell tour?
Yes, he has now done an interview with MinMax. Because everything is so much lately, I can't remember what the last story was about that he talked to kind of funny about Bloodborne. That's what it was.
Yes.
He talked kind of funny about the possibility of a Bloodborne PC port.
Yes.
He's talked Yes, he's talked to MinMax about the Nintendo PlayStation game that he played.
I think that's super interesting.
I think it's very cool. Like he got into some detail with them about what, as far as he knows, was the first game made for the Nintendo PlayStation add-on, the joint Nintendo Sony CD-ROM thing that kind of blew up and didn't happen and led to the actual PlayStation.
Yep.
Apparently there were games almost done for that thing. And he described the one he played, which was a scrolling shooter. Apparently sort of like Sylphied, he says. I don't know if you've played Sylphied.
I've never played it. I've seen video.
It was on. I didn't realize this. I played it on the Sega CD, but apparently it was on a lot of Japanese computers as well. It was a vertical scrolling shooter that kind of like streamed the background in, and this is like in the 16-bit era, Like, so the backgrounds were like way more kind of 3D and FMV-ish looking than you would expect from like tile-based graphics on 16-bit.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently it was something along those lines. But anyway, just knowing that there are almost finished games out there for what would have been the Nintendo PlayStation, pretty rad.
Mean, get them out there.
Yeah,
Release it to that one, the one that's out there.
He says it was a shooter. Do you remember the Sega CD system? There's an amazing game from Game Arts, a space shooter, and all the assets are streaming from the CD. So lots of assets coming in. Basically saying it was like that, is what he's saying. It could have been developed in the US or Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if it was in Sony's archive, is the gist of the quote. So maybe it's still lying around somewhere, but it's kind of funny because, like, if that thing leaked, what would anybody do with it? There's no hardware to run it on.
There's that one, right?
There's that one, but there's no like specs out there to work off of, so nobody could even come close to like genning up an emulator or anything. Like, maybe somebody needs to get together the money to convince whoever has that thing to give it up.
Do you think there's more than the one?
I don't know. The one prototype or the one game?
Yeah.
Oh,
no, prototype.
I don't know. This Video Games Chronicle story reminds about the purchase of that thing for $360,000. Apparently it was owned by the first CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment, Olaf Olafsson. But the rest presumably destroyed. I don't know.
That's the only part that, if they didn't say the rest destroyed, I'd be like, oh, they only like really put together one. When you say the rest destroyed,
assumed destroyed is what the
assumed,
story
or assumed destroyed, then
not,
it's like, oh, did they make other ones?
I would not be shocked if at least one more survived.
Yeah,
but who knows?
You think you could take that prototype apart if you were to buy it, Brent?
Yeah.
Would you allow someone to try to take it apart to from the ground up, dump everything that's on it, look at the code, replicate it, and make stuff that could be playable on it? If
it was somebody that I trusted who could do it non-destructively, yeah, absolutely.
What if part of it had to be destroyed?
If it had to be destroyed, that would be a tougher call. Not even from a like, I want to hoard my precious jewels, in my dragon's lair or whatever, but like from a historical standpoint, because at that point,
is the only one.
At that point, if that's the only one, there's an actual debate about, is it more valuable historically to like dump the BIOS and like try to document the specs of this thing, or maintain the integrity of the item as a historical artifact? I don't know. What if people could like make games for it today? Right, like that
kind of cool.
If you could get all the specs out there and stuff, theoretically, they could make a Mr. Core for that thing potentially, and like I bet people would. I bet there are some hobbyists who would go wild if they had what they knew were the exact like real specs of that thing. Like, I bet people would make games for that thing because just
absolutely,
the wish fulfillment of saying, hey, this was exactly what that thing was going to be.
Not only would they try to make games for it, they would absolutely be like, okay, here's what like Ocarina would have looked like on here, right? Like, here's what you could have had.
Yeah, like there's some of that with the I think the MSU1, right, is the kind of fake SNES CD-ROM that people have come up with for emulators. That's the thing where they'll like add FMV to Link to the Past and stuff like that.
Okay.
Or,
yes, right, yes, like
that's like a kind of fake or kind of fan made spec for what a CD-ROM add-on would be for the SNES. Like this was obviously something different and probably more powerful.
Or like the one I remember is like full CD audio, right? Like full orchestration.
Yeah, right.
For those games.
Yeah. So anyway, it's pretty cool to know that there are games out there for this thing, even if they never see the light of day.
Playable or somewhat playable. Yeah. And also, I I called that game Sliphead for a very long time.
Okay.
It's one of those things you read
and
never say aloud. And like, for some reason, all those letters was always, Sliphead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Heard of it.
I always have a hard time keeping Sylphid and Soulfeast straight.
Oh.
Because they're both Sega CD scrolling shooters with very similar names.
I'm glad I'm just not in that genre.
Except Sylphid was made by Game Arts, which is a pretty cool developer name. Soulfeast was made by Wolf Team.
That's also cool.
Okay, that's cool in its own way.
Wolf Team continues to be maybe the coolest video game developer name of all time.
Sure.
Especially when you booted up that Sega CD game, it said Game Creative Design, Wolf Team.
We are Wolf Team.
Like every time.
All right, that's the news. Yeah, go get us a prototype. Somebody dump the prototype.
Yep.
Non-destructive.
Get to dumping.
We got any emails this week?
Yeah, let's do a couple quick ones here.
Okay.
All right.
I kind of just want to read this X-Files email.
Do it.
Give it to me.
From Zach in Savage, Minnesota. I'm like kind of feeling some X-Files nostalgia coming on after that stream.
All right.
Your X-Files FMV adventure got me thinking about the original run of the show and how it was must-see viewing in my house on a weekly basis. As luck would have it, he mentions between my dad, my sister, and me. It was must-see viewing. As luck would have it, the week we convinced my very squeamish mom to give it a chance was episode 2, season 4, Home.
Okay. That doesn't mean anything to me.
The very infamous Peacock family episode.
Still nothing.
My mom didn't last through the cold open before checking out, and honestly, the rest of my family was pretty shocked too. Nothing we hadn't seen in movies, but for network TV, we were caught off guard.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember
Alex,
that one.
Do you remember that episode? Because I don't.
I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, episode, I think it's pretty grody. Hang on.
I just pulled it up on Wikipedia, and the caption on the first image is the Peacock family burying their child alive.
Oh.
The rest of the email says, as far as I remember, that episode aired only once and then never again.
Interesting.
Leading people to straight up not believe me when I talked about it until the fledgling FX network did a viewer request marathon, at which point Home won the final slot in a landslide. We recorded that onto VHS, and I was able to bring it to college to prove it was real and discussed everyone on my dorm floor. I
know this one.
Yeah, I think I saw people talking about this episode while we were streaming the TC game or the FMV game on Friday.
This is basically the closest the X-Files ever got to just doing the Devil's Rejects. Like, they were basically a weird isolationist family that were doing some grody business.
So it's like redneck torture porn, basically?
Not even like torture porn, but just like kind of gross.
Interesting. I love lost episodes that can't be aired again.
Yeah. I mean, that episode is on the home video releases, so it is out there.
Yeah, I'm sure, this was thinking back to the early 90s. This was back when, network TV just ran a show and then you would never see it again unless it ended up in syndication.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So,
interesting.
Yeah. X-Files definitely went some places.
Dark places.
Yep. All right. Should I read one more?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Last one. Jim writes in. This is in the wake of the Video Game History Foundation's library opening.
Oh, yeah.
I'm active in one of the communities which helps to preserve old video game magazines, and I thought I'd relay a couple of pieces of information.
Okay.
The Video Game History Foundation's digital library and the ability to download or rip stuff from it. The overwhelming majority can also be downloaded from websites that release old gaming magazines that are scanned at 600 DPI or greater, such as Retro Mags and Gaming Alexandria.
Okay.
For cutting glued spines, we have access to a Triumph 4850 paper cutter from MBM Corporation.
Okay.
Because we talked about when that story came up about like wondering how they cleanly get the paper out of the magazines to scan individually and all that stuff. It provides laser guides, bulk cutting, and speed.
I'm sorry. Can you say that? I want to look at a picture of this. This is what
I've got a link here. I don't know if you can see. Okay, well that's a large piece of machinery, actually. The Triumph 4850 paper cutter is a large freestanding machine. Blade material, German steel, is what this says. 2 horsepower.
2 horsepower.
This is a paper cutter with a horsepower rating.
$12,000.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so the email continues. That this thing provides laser guides, bulk cutting, and speed. After scanning, the loose pages are sent to the VGHF to be re-glued where they have all issues from a certain year in one issue, as in a custom EGM 1994 tome about as thick as 2 phone books for their in-person researchers.
Wow.
That's so cool.
So they're taking the entire year's worth of a magazine and binding it into one like super magazine.
That's so cool.
In the library, which is pretty good.
Okay, that rules.
Yep.
I want to see a giant. It must be so hard to flip open and find a thing.
Yep.
I mean, I guess why would you ever flip it open to find a thing if you could just search? But so cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Last bit here. Most publishers don't care about posting magazines older than 10 years, but a couple like Future will DMCA things off of the Internet Archive.
Okay.
For instance...
Will
that tracks with what I know about Future.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bummer. For instance, PC Gamer, we can only upload issues up until the point when that company bought them, and then we need to stop at that issue. We bypass that by uploading these issues with random metadata and maintain a paste bin, which matches their fake named Internet Archive links with their real names.
Shh. Didn't hear that part.
Nope.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's some interesting stuff.
I want to see video of them. If anybody knows of the video of them splitting the glued spine with this thing,
yeah,
I would like to see it. This is one of those industrial machines. I was just watching a video on their website, which is not that interesting, but one of those industrial machines you get stuck watching YouTube videos of as it slices paper. You're like, oh, that's just really sad.
We got our hands on a Triumph 4850.
Yeah,
does it?
Now I'm going to slice tomatoes with it.
Yeah, does it slice? Like cut
the answer
cut
is
an iPhone in half
yes.
Can you cut the Triumph 4850 with a 4850?
Maybe.
Let's find out. Only $12,000 to find out. Man, you could probably do some real damage with that thing, huh?
I mean, we could find out. We can afford one.
Man.
What if we just bought one?
I don't know what I would cut in it.
That's not really important.
We'll find out.
Yeah. That's not the why you would buy it, because you need it.
Look, when you
open up the next Patreon tier.
Look, when you have a Triumph 4850, everything looks like an old issue of EGM.
There you go.
Oh man, I just saw somebody do it. There are 2 levers separated, so you have to push them both down at the same time. I think it's a safety feature to make sure that you don't have a hand in there.
Oh
There
yeah.
are 2 separate levers to push down. That really okay. That just crossed my mind. Moving on.
Yep. Anyway.
All right. Is that it for the emails?
Yes. That was some fun info to know.
Yes, for sure. I have not had a chance to go dig into that site yet and see what's up there.
Yeah,
I
clicked
I did a
around
very
it,
cursory search, but that was it.
Yeah, I checked it out some. It's pretty cool. Do you remember when I was back home during the hurricane and I held up an very thick old E3 like show directory that was like, and I was trying to flip through the pages, but it was like basically ruined.
Oh yeah, they were like almost glued together at that point,
and like very crackly and crunchy. And I found that exact. So I came out of that when I got back home looking for that directory online and could not find it anywhere. And then sure enough, it was right there in their archive. I didn't even go looking for it. Within like 5 minutes of clicking around in that archive, I just happened to come across that exact same show directory. I was like, man, this thing rules.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. And it didn't take you long to get there.
Nope.
That's going to do it for the show. We got a bunch of stuff going on over on the Patreon side of things. Patreon.com/Nextlander. Like we mentioned earlier, Planorama is going up. We've got the Watchcast cooking with we got talented Mr. Ripley up there. We've got Boiler Room with
coming up.
Special guests coming up.
A Boiler Room expert, I'm told.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it hanging there.
Somebody who hadn't even watched the movie, like, or didn't watch it just for this podcast, has seen it so many times and so recently they could just hop on.
Yes. So that'll be coming up soon. During our con month. The con is on month, and the schedule is over on the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Nextlander. Ramblecast, never been a better podcast. All the casts you can find there on the Patreon. There is one tier on the Patreon, only one, not multiple, just one, that gets their names read on this here show. Alex Navarro.
Yes.
Would you do the honor of reading the mysterious benefactors for this week?
Vinny, not only will I do the honor, normally you hit me up before the podcast to say, hey, are you good to do it this week? You didn't?
I didn't.
But I
tried to speak very slowly.
I already had it open.
Oh my gosh! You just keep it there to bask in that light.
It's just how hyped I am to talk about our mysterious benefactors, who are Sean Miller, RRE, Alpha Rhythm, Infelicis Rips, David L., Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, NXL Retirement Fund, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Citizen Sleeper Deirdre, Gary Pejke, Robert Fisher, Bunny Felonies, Jad Rita, Statics, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Randy Alderson, Andrew Tiepkin, Alex Wu, It's Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, Santos L. Halper, and Tyler Treese.
Man, Bunny Fiend going off the grid.
Full felony.
Like,
at what point do we were like, I don't know, this is less a mysterious benefactor name and more a cry for cry for help.
Yeah.
These are not bunny misdemeanors.
No.
They need to check in on Bunny Fiend.
No, I'm sure they're fine. They're not specifying their felonies, so it's all good.
Thanks to all our mysterious benefactors, and thanks again to everyone supporting us over at patreon.com/Nextlander. Again, could not do it without you. Always a joy to talk with everybody over on the Discord and Q&As and what's not. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. That's going to do it for this week's show. We have, let's see, what's going on. On Monday, Abby and I did some more root treeing. I think maybe we have one more episode left. I feel like we're near the end of the root tree.
I think you don't.
I think maybe we don't as well, because there's a whole secret document. We'll see what happens.
There's some things happening.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Have you continued to go into
I'm
root
not
treeing?
where I think you are yet,
Okay.
but I have heard from some people that there are things upcoming.
Okay, good, because we're really enjoying that game.
Yeah.
It's getting complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the root trees. We can check that out with Abby and me. We're doing that. We'll be doing that next Monday as well. We have Brad and I will be continuing with the We Were Here. We are here. We were here.
Yeah.
We were here together. Maybe not our favorite.
Yeah.
We were here now that we're experts, but we'll see how
standards have increased.
Yes, that's right. We'll check that out on Thursday, and then Friday we are back with more of that X-Files, with more of that PlayStation version.
We're gonna find the aliens.
We found the cigarette butt. Now it's time to find the aliens.
Or we can find Mulder and Scully, though.
Well, I don't know. They might be dead.
I think we got all our Mitch Pileggi in the first installment, so I don't know when we get recognizable actors again.
I don't know. We did find a cigarette butt, and there is a certain character, a certain actor that is in the credits that, let's just say there's an association.
Mm-hmm.
If you missed part one of that is over. That was a patron's choice, and that should be up on YouTube. You can check that out.
And now it's an us choice. We're the ones saying we're going to keep playing this.
That's right. Not only am I an owner, I'm also a patron.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to choose this one. That's going to do it for the show. Hope everybody is doing their best out there, trying to get by. Thank you. No matter where you are, really, at this point, no matter where you are.
We're all feeling it.
Thank you very much, Alex Navarro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad Shoemaker.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.